All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Wisconsin Farm Bureau Lunch and Learn. We're excited to have some new people joining us today, so welcome. I'm Wendy Cannell, the Director of Training and Leadership Development here at Wisconsin Farm Bureau, and we're happy to have with us today Amber Radatz, who is the co-director of the UW Discovery Farms. Before we get started, I just want to ask everyone if you can mute yourselves so we don't have any background noise. And also there's a chat feature, so if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or ask a question, and I'm sure that Amber will be happy to answer the question. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Amber. She's going to give her a little bit of an introduction and then jump right into her presentation about Discovery Farms.
Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. I really appreciate the invite to be on today's Lunch and Learn. And I'm coming to you live from Pigeon Falls, where my office is. We're on the western side of the state, but we have Discovery Farm staff all over the state. So let me see. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Good? Okay. Awesome. So again, thanks Wendy and Farm Bureau for having me on the Lunch and Learn today. We are really excited to be able to share with you some of the things that Discovery Farms is doing. So I'm Amber. I'm one of the co-directors of the Discovery Farms program. I have been working full-time for Discovery Farms for the last almost 9 years. And I started with Discovery Farms as an intern, so I sort of grew up with the program a little bit. We're a program through the University of Wisconsin Extension, and we're a statewide program. So what we do is we don't work specifically with any county or any specific region. We work kind of all over the state on water quality issues. So really when I think about Discovery Farms, I think about it as we're really something special from Wisconsin. So a group of farmers in 2000, 2001 got together and felt that we needed water quality research that came from farms in Wisconsin that were privately owned and operated as commercially run farms instead of just agricultural research stations. So kind of bringing the research station out into the field. And so those farmers wanted to have a better handle on when runoff was occurring from their farms and how different practices might impact that runoff and how that impacts water quality across the state. So really, you know, this like grassroots sort of vision is something that, you know, is central to Farm Bureau and also central to us at Discovery Farms. Farm Bureau was one of the groups that had farmers sort of step up and say, you know, we're really interested in this and we need to know more. So that started in 2001, and what we call ourselves is a farmer-led water quality research and education program. And what that means is that we have a few different ways that farmers are leaders for us. We have farmers from the ag groups, and then also representatives from our agencies like DATCAP and DNR and the Extension and NRCS. And so the ag groups and the environmental groups and the agencies all sit down together with us twice a year to decide what our programs should be and what our where our monitoring should be around the state. So for us, that's one way that we're farmer-led, because farmers have a real say in what issues are important to them when it comes to water quality in Wisconsin. And then another way is in the top picture there, you can see somebody that some of you might be familiar with, Joe Bragger, talking about the research that was done on his farm. He was actually the first Discovery Farm in Wisconsin, so really brave to invite people to come and monitor on his farm just to sort of learn more and be more well-versed in how his practices might be benefiting the environment. So he is also always kind of an open book and loves to have tours on his farm and talk about what he's learned and how his system works with the environment there. On the map, you can see the darkest shaded counties are counties that we're currently working in, and then the lighter shaded counties are counties that we've had projects in and they've been graduated. Usually we stay on a farm for 5 to 7 years when we install monitoring equipment. So this is what our monitoring equipment sort of looks like. We work with the U.S. Geological Survey to conduct this research. It is 365 days a year and 24 hours a day. Those sites are kind of operating, so anytime that there's water moving through them, we're able to collect samples and understand more about what the water quality is at that time and at that spot. You can see the winter site there. What that means is that when we are forecasting that there might be a runoff event in an area where we have a site like this, we have to go out and maintain those sites. So shoveling them up on the upside of the flume and the downside so water can get through the flume and away from it. These are the stations, so we put them in. You can see that there's the green thing in the middle that's kind of a V shape is the flume, and then there's a wing wall made out of plywood that goes out each side. And so those things are definitely sort of permanent. So that's why they're there for 5 to 7 years. And the silver box is kind of where the brains are. That's where data is collected. That's where the samples are stored. And those things working together give us a really, really intense picture of what the water quality looks like during different storms and by using different farming practices. So we monitor for the amount of runoff, the amount of sediment, so soil loss, nitrogen, and phosphorus, and a couple different forms of each of those things. So we also have weather stations at each of these sites so that we can connect the weather data, the water quality data, and the farm agronomic data and really get a good picture there. So there's a link here that says check out our real-time data. I was going to put that link in the chat. And now that's gone away from me. There. So I put that link in the chat, and so you should be able to go check that out if you'd like. This is what the site looks like. And so what I mean by real-time monitoring is that these are the sites that we're currently operating around the state, and you can go and click on any of those sites and be able to see if there was runoff and how much and at what time. So if there was runoff yesterday or 2 weeks ago or last month, you'll be able to kind of look through that data that way. The sediment, nitrogen, and phosphorus data aren't there yet because we have to send the samples off to the lab to be analyzed. Then the last link on the bottom there is the weather station, and actually a lot of people have found those to be pretty helpful because they list things like precipitation, soil moisture, soil temperature, things like that. So if you're in the Janesville area, that might be a cool resource for you to have. So I just wanted to show a little time-lapse video so you can kind of get a feel for what this really looks like in real life. Like, what does runoff monitoring look like? This is actually a site in Minnesota, and this was a couple of years ago, but they knew a big storm was coming, so they set up this time-lapse camera so that they could get a picture like every couple minutes and be able to get a good representation of what a runoff event really looks like. So you can see the storm has moved in, dumped a lot of water, and now we see water coming through that flume and really kind of filling up at the edge of the field. There's probably some sediment in that water because of the high amount of rain. There's 3.76 inches that happened in less than 16 hours. And a couple of days before that, there was a 1.3 inch rain. So that flume is actually 2.5 feet deep, and the water got up to 2.3 feet and stayed at about 6 inches for most of that 8-hour or 15-hour duration. So this is a pretty big runoff event, and really, once we worked up the data, accounted for most of the year's annual losses. And we all know that one storm can really have a big impact there. You can see there's people coming in and out of the frame. During storms like this, we have to be out collecting data. And so that's not a super glamorous part of the job. But high quality data is really important to us. So this is, like I said, in Minnesota, we partner with the Discovery Farms program in Minnesota to be able to combine our data sets and really just be able to provide similar services across the two states to help farmers learn more about water quality. And pretty soon the water will be down and it'll look like nothing ever happened, right? So it's amazing how quickly these things come and go. So one of the most important things, so research is really important for us, but also communicating these results is kind of our biggest job. And I think what sets us apart from some other research programs in the past. And, you know, this is turning data into information is really challenging, but it's so important. And we give lots of presentations like this, and we host about 10 of our own events every year, different field days and meetings. We've got a couple of meetings coming up in March and in different regions around the state. And then sometimes you'll see us in newspapers or putting a insert into the ag papers, things like that. You may have seen us in Rural Route in the last issue. And so we're always trying to be able to communicate what we're learning with farmers, because farmers are the ones that can actually use this information. You're the ones that farm the land every day and should be able to control sort of the decisions that you make. And I really believe that knowledge is power. So I want you to have the best information available to make those decisions. So I'll just talk a little bit about our current Discovery Farms projects. Right now, we are kind of wrapping up 2 watershed projects that began in 2010. We monitored on the map on the right, you can see all those little red dots. Those were all fields that we put monitoring stations in. So in this particular watershed, which is in Monroe and Vernon County, we had 6 monitoring stations in that little watershed. This was really only about 4,500 acres. And then we had 2 spots where we were monitoring the stream. So what we were trying to do is really connect what happens in the field to then what happens in the stream. And that's really challenging from a science perspective, but it gives farmers there and around the state such good information to work with. So we're right now done monitoring there and working on wrapping up kind of the final report from that. We worked with all the farmers. In the other watershed was in St. Croix County. And in the 2 watersheds, we engaged all the farmers in an on-farm walkover. So just being able to give them kind of a visual observation of conservation on their land, and then worked with them on manure management practices and nutrient management practices, things like that. So those 2 watersheds were kind of a combination of the water quality science and then also working with the community that is there and helping them to continue to farm there in a way that's profitable for them and helpful for the environment. This is an example of 2 of the resources that have kind of come out of those watershed programs. The one on the left is the Field Walkover Guide. This is like kind of a really nice guide for being able to do your own conservation assessment on your farm. So we have copies of these available and can surely mail them out to anybody that's interested, or you can download it on our website. And it's got some really interesting stuff in it about how to check to see if there's erosion in your fields and how to just kind of make your own decisions about conservation and then what resources are available to help you continue to have conservation in your farming systems. And then on the right is some of our data, and we talk a little bit about soil loss with tillage and no-till. We talk about timing of manure applications, and then getting a little bit more subtle, but just placing phosphorus and how to reduce losses of phosphorus, nitrogen, and soil at different times of the year. So those things are both available on our website, and I'll give you the address for that as we get through here a little more. So I wanted to talk a little bit about one current project we have is in Rock County. We started that in 2014. We're going to be there at least for 5 years. We're already 3 years in. And we're on 2 different farms there. We're going to be able to learn more about grain and vegetable crop rotations and areas that are not manured, because a lot of our data right now is about farms that receive manure. And then we're going to be able to evaluate cover crops there, some tillage, no-till questions. So those farmers are awesome to work with, and we have had some really great events there. So a lot of people are interested in that area. So the monitoring stations that I showed you are kind of our traditional way of monitoring, and we're still putting those in around the state. But we're also trying to work to add different types of data collection and grow the Discovery Farms network of farmers so that we can increase the usability of information and help more people have on-farm work on their specific farms. So one of those projects that helps us do that is a nitrogen use efficiency project. So nitrogen can be kind of tricky to manage in farming systems. There's a lot of sources on farm of nitrogen, like manure or different legume crops, and then also commercial nitrogen. And so what we're trying to do is just to try to help farmers quantify how nitrogen is cycling in their farming systems. And right now, in the past 3 years, we've worked with 55 farmers on 212 fields since 2014. And we have kind of graduated the first farmers from that program, so they're in it for 3 years. And what we do is just get information from them about what nitrogen practices they're using, and then we take yield measurements and analyze the soil and plant for nitrogen content so that we can kind of get a nitrogen budget through the year. And then we've had some farmers that have kind of done some strip trials with using different levels of nitrogen or different types and just trying to increase their efficiency. Really exciting for us is that we're going to be able to continue this project for a couple more years, and we get to add 3 new areas to our project, and we're probably going to be working with about 30 new farmers in Dunn, Sauk, and Pepin counties. So we're really excited about that, to keep learning more about that. We also have started a tile monitoring network in northeastern Wisconsin. So this is kind of a combination of the types of monitoring that I showed before and some kind of less intense types of monitoring, so that we're going to be able to work with 14 farms on 24 different sites in Shawano, Brown, Kewaunee, and Manitowoc counties. So what's really exciting for us is that those monitoring stations are pretty expensive to put in, and so we wouldn't be able to put 24 of them in without completely blowing a budget. And so it's exciting to be able to combine different types of monitoring so we can just bring more on-farm monitoring to farmers in Wisconsin.